So thank you all so much for being here today. My name is Lindsay Gleason-Reed. I'm the Assistant Director at the Community Foundation of the New River Valley. And this is our monthly Third Thursday series. So these are workshops that are designed for nonprofit leaders in terms of the topics that we choose, but anyone who's interested in the topic is welcome to join. We're always happy to have folks, and these are always free to you all. We typically have them on Zoom, but we try to do them at least quarterly in person. Our last third Thursday of the year will be in person. We're going to do a lunch, and that is, let me check the date, December 18th. And that will kind of be an end of year celebration. And I can kind of send out the time and location to folks after this meeting, and would love to have you there so you can save the date. So a few announcements. We are winding down the year, but there's still always something going on at the Community Foundation and, of course, in our community with all of you. An announcement from the Community Foundation is that our scholarship application is open. That one is available to high school seniors, to students already in college or at trade school or technical school, or if you know an older adult who's returning to school. We have lots of scholarships that we're looking forward to giving out. So I'll put a link in the chat, but it's cfnrv.org/scholarships. And the deadline to apply for those is Friday, January 23rd, 2026 at 5 p.m. And we would love if folks could spread the word there, because we love scholarship season and reading about all the great things that students are doing. I think those are my main announcements. Laura, I don't know if there's anything else that comes to mind for you from the Community Foundation.
I think we better tell them we're moving.
Oh, we're moving. Yes. So the Community Foundation, we started in 1994, and the entire time we've had landlords. But we found an office space late last year to buy and closed on it earlier this year. We've had some renovations done, and we will be moving in December to Professional Park in Blacksburg, which is right around the corner from where we currently are. It's up on off of North Main Street. So we'll be advertising that we've moved and such, and we're excited because the next time we move will be many, many moons from now, and it'll be our own choice. So we hope to stay in this place for a really long time. So lots going on at the foundation.
One more thing, Lindsay.
Mhm.
Can you remind them where the December third Thursday would be since we're moving offices and
It's
we're
gonna
in
be in,
flux?
yeah, it's gonna be in the Corporate Research Center. And to be honest with you, I do not remember which room I reserved, but I will be able to, I'll send that out to everybody. But it'll be in
Okay.
Blacksburg in the CRC.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. All right, I'm putting the scholarship link in the chat. But it's to be with all of you today, and I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca Moore. She is the owner of Three Bird Photography and has been a great friend to the foundation, taking pictures at a lot of our events. And we just really enjoy working with her, and thought that this could be a great topic for folks. I know that at the Community Foundation, we also struggle to find good photos sometimes when we don't have a professional there. So just looking forward to hearing from Rebecca and having her share her expertise.
Hello, everyone. All right, I'm going to try to start sharing my screen. My goal for this morning is to really have this be more of a conversation. I have some talking points. You guys asked some really great questions that was super helpful in kind of creating the presentation for today. Please feel free as I'm talking, if a thought comes up or a question comes up, you're more than welcome to unmute and ask. You can put it in the chat. I will do my best to kind of bounce around and pay attention. So let me see if I can start sharing. All right. All right. Here we go. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Okay. So I may just keep it little like this for right now, because we're going to go through some different slides, and I will make sure that I get some of these slides to you guys, after the presentation, especially ones that have a little bit more information. So if you have questions or thoughts or things that you kind of want to revisit, that you have the opportunity to do so. And I'm also trying to put together a little bit of a cheat sheet because a lot of you had a very similar question about can we use our iPhones as cameras, which you absolutely can. I have some tips and tricks with that. And so I'm going to create a cheat sheet that I'll send out to Lindsay that she can then forward out to everybody, so that you have that to reference back to throughout the year. So the topic for today is creating images that communicate your mission. So before we get started, what I want you guys to do is to take a moment to really kind of get clear. So I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes or so. If you want to get paper, pencil, pen, if you would rather type it, that's fine too. But the first thing that I want you to do is write down what your agency's mission statement is. And then the second part of that is to then list 3 words that come to mind when you read the statement. So that could be things like hope, connection, community, care, joy, second chances, et cetera, et cetera. So take a second to do that because that's going to really be sort of the base that we build from for the rest of the presentation. So I'll give you about 5 minutes to do that. I'm going to mute myself and then I will come back and we'll have a moment to share these things. Okay. If you're not done, do not panic. You have plenty of time to keep working. But do I have anybody who would volunteer to either to give their agency's mission statement or maybe just a brief synopsis of it and then a couple of the words that came to mind?
This is Kristen from Blacksburg Junior Women's Club. I'm happy to go.
Okay, go ahead.
The mission statement I'm using is actually for the overarching organization that we belong to, the General Federation of Women's Clubs, and that's to enhance the lives of others through volunteer service and community improvement. And so the words that came to mind for me were partnership, action, involvement, home is like a sense, community, like this is our home. And the first word I had kind of was like relief. Like if you're enhancing someone's life, you're kind of maybe relieving them of some burden, but also
Mhm.
like, increase, improvement, betterment, something in that like wheelhouse.
Nice, very nice. Excellent. Anybody else?
Oh, but Lindsay's gonna laugh at my word crafting because it's nowhere up to um her expertise. But here goes. The CFNRV's mission is to convene the community around critical issues and invest donor dollars according to their charitable interests to create funds to grant to organizations addressing those issues. So my keywords would be critical issues, invest, and charitable interests.
Nice. Beautiful. Anybody else? Okay. So if you've got your words in front of you and you've got your mission statement, let's go to the next one. So then step 3. So when you think of those words that you identified, the next part that's really helpful is to think what kind of images come to mind when you think of those words. Um, and so some ways that you like if you're kind of hitting a stumbling block, think you can think about other agencies and maybe ways that they have taken images and pictures to communicate those things. You could even think of famous photographers that do like maybe documentary style work that you've seen that really kind of convey feelings, emotions to you. So when you think of those 3 words, what type of images automatically kind of spring to mind? And I would jot some of those notes down. I'll give you like 1 minute to do that. And then to even build a little bit more on that, when you're thinking about the images that you're thinking of creating, where would you use those? Would those be on like social media? Would those be on handouts that you have that you give to either um, potential clients you come in contact with, or maybe community partners, or um, investors, or things of that nature? Would it be signage that you're creating for your particular group? Would it be community flyers, things of that nature? So really kind of thinking of like, how do we want to use these images? So this is our mission statement. These are the 3 words that really kind of spring to mind when we think of that. When I think of those 3 words, here are some images that come to mind. And then when I think of those images, where would we use them? Because there's different places that we use images to convey messages. And then the other piece of that is who's kind of the designated individual who kind of helps develop contact or content for your agency? Or do you have multiple people who do that? Or is it all kind of like everyone on board, we're all kind of trying to brainstorm and figure things out? Because I know that a lot of times, um, in nonprofit agencies and things like that, or smaller agencies, everyone wears multiple hats. And so sometimes you're all kind of, throwing ideas into the pot. But if you can sit down and kind of create this framework, then you've got a really nice starting point to have some cohesiveness when you start to think about the message that we're trying to get across, the emotion we want to evoke with that message, or, the kind of the vibe, if you will, that we want to create. And then what images create that message. So there's some cohesion amongst you as a group. You sort of know what you're doing. And so the reason that I start with that as sort of the framework is because then as you create images or you come across opportunities to take some pictures throughout the year, as you take those pictures and you're reviewing them, you can go back to your 3 words and say, does this picture accurately represent hope? Does it accurately represent partnership? Does it accurately represent relief, or home? And if you're like, nope, 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 then that's probably not a great image to use. Any questions with that piece of things? And if not, then I'll sort of start going into more the practical piece of it.
Okay, I'm Elizabeth Foster. I'm from the Valley Interfaith Child Care Center, which is
Okay.
for low income uh, working families in the
Mhm.
New Valley.
Mhm.
And the 3 words that we promote um, our mission with are safety, love, and learning.
Okay.
And the last 2 are easy,
Sure.
but I have trouble trying to figure out how to communicate safety without communicating danger, safety from danger. And
Sure. So,
um,
okay, so let's work backwards with it. So when you think of safety, or you think of a time you have felt safe, what has that looked like for you?
shelter,
Okay.
uh, but I think also in the context of the daycare center, we're thinking of not poking ourselves with scissors and
Sure.
um, so we're keeping the children safe from harm,
Hmm.
outside harm, but also from inside harm.
Personal harm.
Uh,
Yes.
yeah.
So something that immediately popped into my mind when I was thinking of this is like a hug or an embrace with a smile. And I think of that because um it sort of plays into all of that. Like it's sort of creating a refuge and a sense of safety from the outside. It's also creating a sense of safety within relationship. It's also creating a sense of safety of like, we're here. So even, if something happens, and I think that sort of is a way to kind of think about it in a sense, because you're right. Like, yes, with little ones, there you have to have, child proofing and boundaries and parameters and things. So how do you create a sense of safety that's communicated in a way that's not so literal? And so maybe it could be something like an embrace or like hand holding, or things like that. So that's a great question because as we go through, and I'll make sure, Elizabeth, when we get there, I have a couple images that I'll show you. Um, all the pictures that are in my PowerPoint are ones that I've taken. Most of them are just personal pictures that I've taken. And what you'll notice is that very few have faces in them. And very few have like they're sort of open to interpretation, but they sort of communicate something in them. So as we're going through, if you guys want to kind of keep an eye on that too, it'll show you some ways to use images that might be a little bit outside the box. But simple, very simple. So this one is one obviously that you can see me and my daughter are at our art table crafting. Um, a big question that you guys had was, do I need to get an expensive camera to be able to take good pictures? And something that I learned becoming a photographer is it's not always about the gear. So you don't always have to have the latest, the greatest, the most expensive stuff out there. Is it fun? Sure. Does it sometimes give you an advantage with some of the images you can create? Sure. But do you have to have it? No. Because the other piece is if you don't know how to use it, which can sometimes be a little bit of a steep learning curve, it's really not helpful to you anyway. So I always, sort of what I was taught, but also what I try to encourage others is work with what you got. And I know I'm still working in the mental health field, and I've been in the mental health field for over 20 years at this point. And I know budgets are tight, resources are tight. We really try to stretch what we have, which sometimes can be difficult. And so sometimes, or a lot of times, what that means is working with what we got. And that could be an iPhone. So a couple tips when you're working with your iPhone: make sure everything's clean. And this sounds like a really simple, almost kind of ridiculous thing to say. Um, but I want to see, I'm doing this so that I can see you guys as well as I'm going through. You're going to want to make sure that your lenses on your phone are wiped clean, because if not, you're going to get like a haze on your pictures. They won't be quite as clear, because the iPhones have come a significantly long way. And a lot of times, like things that you're seeing on social media or influencers or things like that, a lot of that is taken with iPhone cameras. So these up here, your lenses that are on the back of your phone, you want to make sure that you keep those really clean. You can use an alcohol wipe. You can, use like a dust cloth to really wipe off, any dust or things like that. And then also up here, you want to make sure this area is really clean as well. So that's kind of part one. The second part is, if you are looking to have, a couple little extra tools on board, you could get like a cheap tripod to stick your iPhone on. That'll give you some, like if you are going to create something and include yourself in it, then you can put the phone on the tripod and push record, or you can, sometimes set up a timer on your iPhone to take the pictures, all of that. The second part is really looking at getting creative. So when we are working within a really tight budget, and I feel like we're some of the best people at this, is kind of thinking outside the box, because we're forced to do that a lot. And so if you can think of different ways to get creative and create fun, engaging content with, a few arts and crafts supplies, or taking a walk outside and looking for things that might reflect your agency, that's another important piece of the puzzle. And then the other thing is practice, practice, practice. The reality is you're going to take a lot of bad pictures. You're going to look through stuff and you're going to be like, nope, can't use this. Nope, can't use this. Nope, this isn't helpful. But then you're going to start finding that, within all of these pictures that you're taking, you actually do get 3 or 4 ones that you're like, oh, this could actually work. And when it comes down to it, you only need a couple really good pictures to make the content that you need. And then you can just reuse it. A lot of times people think I need to have constant, ongoing, fresh content. And the reality is, yeah, it is good to have updated stuff, at times, but you can also go back and reuse a lot of the same stuff and just put different messaging on it, or, put different information on the flyer, but use some of those same photos. So don't be afraid that if you have, like a file of images saved, on a computer, to reuse those in different ways. That's absolutely appropriate and it's totally okay. The goal is, don't stress yourself out about it, because there's enough to stress about on a daily basis as it is. So then how do we make good photos? So, okay, I've got my iPhone. I'm out here. I'm trying to do some different things. What do I do? Like, how do I actually take good pictures? And this is where I like to say, get creative, experiment, try different things. So use different angles, come up high and take a picture of something looking down, which you'll see like my running shoes up in the top right corner. I always feel like those are, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I can't see your slides. I don't know if other folks can see them. I see the creating images that communicate your mission slide. But just wondering if you
Oh.
might need to reshare.
Yep, let me see. Hold on. Stop share. Let me try to reshare. Sorry, thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Um, let's see.
Yeah, I hate interrupting people, but
No, you're
there
good.
it
You're
is.
good.
Okay,
Now,
I
okay. Can
see
you see it
it.
now?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so like this top right corner where my shoes are, I mean, I feel like that's kind of a really classic, easy picture to take, but also it can be, you could have that and then up here in the green space, you could have a little message of like walking forward in partnership with our local community, like fun little tag lines like that that you can put with an image that creates a story, if you will. Um, different angles. So then you can also zoom in, pictures of the feet, kick back, relax. We got you. This is a place that feels like home. You know, um, if you can use pictures of people's faces. So, and here's the trick I would say to this, because this was another thing, and there's a couple slides on this a little bit later, but I'll also just say this right now. I know that when you are working with certain populations, confidentiality is a huge piece. It's very sensitive. Um, a lot of the people that we work with in the mental health service field are coming from really sensitive scenarios, safety issues. Literally, you cannot show people's faces because of safety things. Um, you don't have to use your clients to create images. You can take the pictures with your coworkers and like pretend you're clients. No one's going to know. You could have friends of yours and just say, hey, we're trying to do like a content day. Do you guys, let's all get together. We can have pizza for lunch. And here's some different things that we want to take some pictures of. Are you game? Do you mind doing that for us? And they'll probably be like, hey, sure, no problem. So, you can do things like this. Like this could be perfect for, women getting together and being in community with one another. And, like we love, we laugh, we live together. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. But and then, here's another image right here in this bottom right-hand corner that uses a lot of really beautiful color and fun, playful images. And you have a child in the picture, but it's the back of the child. So you could never really identify who that child is. And so, you could say something like, look, the wonder of life and the engagement of learning here at blah, 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 So there's all, using different angles, big pictures, little pictures, color, black and white. There's so many different ways to create images that can communicate a lot that have nothing to do with actually taking pictures of the people that you are currently serving. So just something to keep in mind. All right, let me see if I can move to this next slide and see if it's gonna. All right, can you guys see this? Client confidentiality. Oh, hold on, it's paused. I apologize. Do, 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 do. All right. Let me see which one it is. I think I might have. All right, we're going to go to this one. Here we go. All right. So I know that something that somebody asked was, are emotions important? Or how do you use emotions in your images? So what I would say is here are more images, none of which have faces in them for the most part. What are some emotions that come to mind? And you guys can just unmute and call them out as you're looking. Some emotions that come to mind when you look at these different pictures.
The bottom left, isolation.
Okay. Anything else with any of these pictures?
The cat makes me think of just calming comfort.
Okay. Yep. I like to think of this top right one up here as like fun. There's bright colors. There's a pool, there's a beach ball. You can sort of imagine yourself being in that place, engaging in, splashing in the water and playing and having fun. So when I think about this is kind of where we go back to the three words. And so if your word was like partnership and safety, would you use the bottom left picture? No. Yeah, exactly. So you automatically know looking at that picture, if we all look at this picture and we say, oh, this kind of gives me this feeling of like being alone and sort of walking down the road and not knowing where you're going, then we're like, nope, that's not what we want to convey. That picture's out. But if we wanted to say, hey, we want to feel like you're calm, you have a sense of security, you have a sense of peace, and we look at these and we say, ooh, well, this cat one kind of makes me feel that way, that might be the perfect indicator of that's a picture that we can set aside to say we're going to use this somehow. So when you think about emotion, you really want to think of like what's drawing people in versus what's repelling them. Um, some things to think about with this is like, color kind of plays into this when you think of warm colors versus cool colors. So this has a lot more coolness to it in this bottom left. Bottom right is a lot warmer. And that automatically sort of generates a feeling of I would say maybe more two versus sort of that feeling of coolness and isolation. So as you're going through making pictures or trying to make pictures, thinking about activities or even like little things you have lying around the office or even if you go outside into nature and take pictures, what are some things that you can include in your pictures that are going to bring in those words and bring in that warmth? All right, let me bring up the next slide. All right. Oops. Sorry. How many of you have tried to do content, and as you do it, it's like you start overthinking, or you're like, nope, this isn't going to work. Oh gosh, I don't know if I like that. I don't even know where to start. Are people even going to like this? Are people going to connect with this? How many of you have felt that way before? Yeah. Totally relate. And what I've learned, especially, with a photography business, a lot of it is like posting on social media. And I will tell you that before I had my photography business, I was not a poster. I was one of those people who would go on social media to get caught up on everybody else, but I very rarely put anything up myself. It just wasn't something that I did. And then I had a photography business, and very quickly I had to go, oh my God, I need to post. And then I need to post content. And then there's all these rules around it. And it very quickly can be very overwhelming. Some key takeaways that I've learned is it's not about perfection. Just try to have fun with it. This is a chance to be creative. It is an opportunity to essentially talk about the work that you're doing day in and day out that people don't always have an opportunity to see. And I think for those of us in this field of work, it's kind of crazy because you are really, the way that I think of it is that these agencies that you guys are coming from really sort of are holding, it's kind of the glue that holds our communities together, but they're often overlooked. And so I think that this is a really exciting way for you guys to be able to kind of get out there and say, we are working hard. There's a lot that's going on here. And we're really proud of the work that we're doing. And we want everybody to know so that people can start getting on board and supporting this. So, again, practice, practice, practice. Social media can feel intimidating. Creating flyers and putting stuff out there can feel intimidating. It doesn't have to, though. Just keep it simple. the 3 words can always keep you anchored. So, you've already got your mission, you've got your 3 words. It's sort of this anchor that you can come back to continue to filter your image and filter your message. So if you feel like you're getting stumped, go back to those words and get, sort of start to create a think tank together to get creative about it. Get others involved. If you're going into classrooms and you know that it's okay, and you're worried that, kids are going to get curious or it's going to cause, a little bit of commotion. It probably will. I mean, if we're going to be honest, kids are very curious. They're naturally curious. And if you've seen little ones, because of the way that our society is, the minute like a phone comes out like this or they see a camera, they're like all ready to cheese and be on for the camera. So I think if you're just transparent and you're saying like, hey, here's kind of what we're doing right now. You're going to see me walking around. I'm going to be taking some pictures, but you guys just keep having fun. You keep learning. If I need you for anything, I'll let you know. And then that way, they'll stare at you for a little bit, but then eventually they'll get back to doing what they're doing. I sort of feel that way if I walk in like a big presentation and I'm taking pictures. Like initially everyone's kind of looking to check out what you're doing, but then their attention gets, carried off somewhere else. And so, just keeping it as natural and normal as possible and kind of keeping a flow with things, eventually it won't be such a big deal. And then the goal really is to drive connection and curiosity with your images. You want to connect with other people who are looking at it. And you also want people to sort of be like, "Ooh, tell me more. Like, I would like to learn a little bit more about that." So I also think that's kind of the nice plus for you guys. Like, if you feel sort of restricted by, well, we can't really show our clients, that's okay. And actually, that might be even better for you because if you're showing other things, like maybe you're putting together a food drive, and so you're taking some pictures of people putting together boxes of food, or you're taking pictures of uh decorating for an upcoming holiday dinner that your church is hosting for community people. And you're, taking pictures of that. And then, so then you're posting about it. That's going to drive people's curiosity. Like, ooh, what are they doing? Tell me more. And then that's an invitation to bring people in to say, hey, if you want to learn more about our agency or the events that we're holding or the things that we're doing, you can connect with us here. Or call us from this time to this time, or here's the person that you can outreach for more information. So if you can sort of, turn the thinking around a little bit to it doesn't have to be perfect, you just got to do it. That sort of takes the stigma off of it and takes a little bit of the pressure away for what it should look like. And what you're going to find is that the more you're doing it, the more confident you're going to get. And then the more you're going to start creating the imagery that you're wanting, putting it out there. And then it's just gonna build. It's kind of like a snowball that will build on itself. All right. And with that, let me show you something that I did with one of my friends who is a therapist. So obviously we're not wanting to show, specific things with reference to her, office and actually working with one-on-one with somebody. So what we did is here we go. She used her daughter and we just created lots of a couple of different scenarios. Here's a sand tray where she's doing therapy. She's a play therapist. She works mainly with young children. Obviously, she wanted to show parts of what she does in her play therapy office, because when people hear play therapy, they have no idea what that means, So let me help communicate a little bit about what we do without actually breaking confidentiality. So that when you look at these pictures, your brain can start to form a little bit of a story of what you can expect. So we had the sand tray set up and her daughter was playing with it. There's, different manipulatives that she has in her office that she uses, and then sitting and doing some different craft work during a session is something that they do together. So this was a way of kind of showing what she does, still maintaining confidentiality, but being able to communicate to others if they're interested a little bit about what you can expect, and there was a whole lot more of other images that we had, like just pictures of the office, pictures of the building that the office is in, um, what the playroom looked like so that people could see the playroom. But these were just a couple that I pulled that are sort of like the action shots that give a little bit of a concept for some things that happen in a play therapy session. So with that, let me get this last slide because there's one more picture that I want you guys to see. Do you guys have questions?
No, Rebecca, but my 3 words weren't so easy to find pictures for or think
So
of pictures for.
remind me what your 3 words were again.
Issues and investment and charitable interest, but maybe it should be critical issues and donor dollars and organizations. I'm not real sure.
So, okay, so let's brainstorm a little bit. We do a little brain dump. So when you think of organizations, what comes to mind?
All the all the people,
There's no right
that
or wrong answer. Just spill it out and we'll work through it.
all the people that are in our community that help to rise all boats.
Perfect. So when you're thinking about that, what's a way to get pictures of that?
I guess is to take pictures of the organizations in action doing what they do.
Mm-hmm. And so what's a way to find out with those organizations that you work with how you might get access to that?
I'd give them a grant check and take their picture.
If I give you money, will you take your picture with me? So that's one way to do it. The other thing you could do is also just say, hey, you could send a group, like a mass email to some of the people that you work with and say, yes, we get pictures of you throughout the year at these big events. However, we're also interested in getting some images, basically kind of in your grassroots day-to-day operations. Do you have any upcoming events or things that you're doing, community outreach, etc., where you might be willing to have us come and just take 2 or 3 pictures of you in action? And then you will probably get a whole list back from people of like, hey, on this date, we're doing this. On this date, we're doing this. On this date, we're doing this. Feel free to stop by anytime. And if it works, then you can stop by and take a couple pictures. If it doesn't work, the other thing you could do is you could outreach them and say, hey, if you have any pictures from any of your recent events, we'd love if you'd share a couple with us that we can use to help, promote what everyone's doing here in the NRV.
But I have to run a fine line, Rebecca, because it's a fine line between promoting their organization and I'm trying to promote mine.
Sure.
Which, basically I'm an investment organization.
Yes.
So that's where I'm running into humongous difficulties in my brain.
Yeah, I kind of think of you as like the spider web. Like sort of you're the hub and then you've got this web that comes out from it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't necessarily think that a spider with a web is the best way to
No.
show.
It is.
But I also think that could be something that you think about is like kind of creating you guys in the middle and maybe finding ways to sort of collage other things around you.
Oh, that's a cute idea.
Mm-hmm.
Laura, I love the idea of all the boats rising together.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered, had hands holding up the names of organizations, supporting those organizations.
Yep. The other thing I'll say, and Kristen, I'll get to you here in one second. I appreciate you raising your hand. Unless you have something to say about this, and then you can just speak out.
Go
The other
ahead.
thing that if you guys are like, oh my gosh, this is just overwhelming, and the thought of taking pictures on my own, like, just take me out now. What you can look at that is a very economical thing that a lot of businesses do is getting stock photos.
Mhm.
And you can buy stock photos on the internet if you literally just type in stock photography, and then it'll bring up sites that sell essentially photographers like myself or other people. There are people who specialize in stock photography. And so they will take bajillions of images that, they put out each month onto a website that you as a consumer can then go on and Google, like stock photos of boats rising, and then all of a sudden you'll get all of these options of photos you can purchase that are very inexpensive that you can then use in your own campaigns and things like that. So that's another option too. If you're like, nope, this is just, I'm not even, no, like give me something even easier. My done for me thing. Kristen, go ahead.
Thank you. I was just gonna say, Laura, I also kind of feel your pain. Um, for our organization, again, like for volunteers, we have a few things that are kind of, I'm gonna say, like our own. Like we
Hmm.
have a scholarship, we have like a feminine hygiene product drive, but a lot of the times it's like right now we're doing a diaper drive for Montgomery County Christmas store. And
Hmm.
so it like we're like the middlemen. So it's like how do you do that without kind of just be like promoting the other people you're working with?
Yeah.
Especially now with I think our other biggest struggle is I'm gonna say back in the day, air quotes. Um, like we had like the volunteerism and like we were able to donate money, but now
Hmm.
you've got Volunteer Montgomery and like
Hmm.
they're there, they're out there, they're more I'm gonna say more inclusive because we're just a women's club, it can be
Yeah.
anyone. And you've got the 10,000 women and like they've got their money, and so it's like, well, like where do
Yeah.
we fit into this puzzle now, and how do we show like we are important and we want to help and do all the things? So
Mhm.
I feel you, Laura.
Yeah. The other thing I would say too, if you guys are willing to do this, is showing your own faces. And I know that that can be scary sometimes, as ridiculous as that sounds, but a big piece of taking ownership in what you do and who you do it for is showing who you are. Um, and finding that way to distinguish yourself from the multitude of others. Now, thank goodness there is a multitude because this is sort of like
A
it's
good
almost,
problem to have.
I mean, truly, because there's so much need, which is also the really sad side of the coin. But I also hear exactly what you're saying of like we have our own special niche that we work with, and so how do we reinforce to people like this is our niche, this is what we're doing. So when you're having diaper drives, I would take pictures of like you guys standing in front of all the diapers that you have collected. Or when you have like the food drives or things, again, standing in front of it, or taking pictures of you loading stuff into cars to take wherever. Or if you have like a banner up or some kind of signage with the name of your group on it, taking pictures with all of the things with that signage. Because that way that starts to give people sort of that the relatability of like, okay, this woman is with this organization and this is something that they did. And you don't necessarily have to include any of the other partners. And that you're then handing that stuff off to because you guys do have your own little special niche that you're working on. And even if that feels sort of boring, that's okay. Like it doesn't have to be these like crazy action shots of things. It can literally be that simple. You could even have a picture of a mother and her children kind of embracing. And that could be a stock photo that you find, or it can be a friend of yours that you find and you're like, dude, can you just give your kids a hug? Like turn around, you don't even have to face the camera. And then you take a picture. And then you somehow use that, in addition to the diapers and the food drive, and you put all that together on a flyer with a little bit of, information about what you guys are doing or the date of when the food drive is going to end or, things like that. Um, so it can kind of be simple things like that. And if you get stuck, you guys are spitting out some really good ideas. Sometimes I think it's easier to come up with ideas for other people than it is for yourself. So it could be something where you sort of reach out to a friend and with a different agency and say, "Oh my gosh, like this is driving me insane. Do you have any ideas? Like when you think of us, what do you think of?" And that could be a way to sort of help get the ball rolling as well. Any other questions?
Less a question, more of a comment. Like I 100% agree with what you say. I've been trying to get some more photos of like, you know, almost like I don't know how the sorority girls do it, where like here's our group photo that we've all,
Yeah. Yeah.
with our letter. But just be
Yeah.
like because there's a lot of misconceptions.
Hmm.
Like our name unfortunately doesn't do us any favors. But there's some
Sure.
history behind it. So it's like we don't just serve Blacksburg. We're like I met with the police chief the other day, and he's like, "Oh, and you said junior women's. Like I was expecting you to be like 16." And I was like,
Oh,
"Nope." Not quite.
no, that's not
And
us.
so yeah, so just trying to be like, look, like here's who we are, but also
Yeah.
in like a safe internet way, because I'm not like, yes, here's the president, and here's our photo, and here's our full name, trying
Sure.
to more like group shots. But I'm also trying to, I don't know if you have any thoughts on like or if you in your daily work do like videography, because like
Hmm.
my idea for the diaper drive this year is the Christmas store has a very long hallway, and setting up a tripod, being like, shoot
Hmm.
the video and then speed it up of like, look at all the diapers we brought in, and
Yes.
any ideas
Time
for like,
lapse is really fun. I've not
yeah.
done a whole lot with it, but on the iPhone, it's super easy and you can either and like you said, if you just get a simple tripod or even if a tripod's not even something that you guys have access to getting, you could just pile up some books and like lean the phone against
Hmm.
something and then just push start and just record, just check on it every once in a while and record and then you can go back in, edit it, which is pretty simple. You can crop um, footage, or you get the option if you put time lapse. Then when you watch it back, it is going to be like this speeded up version, and
Hmm.
that's really fun to see. Um, and you could even be like a before picture where there's nothing, and then you could do an
Hmm.
after picture where there's like boxes everywhere. Hmm. And then you have the time lapse as a whole nother thing of like how we got to where we got.
I do actually. I did think of another question. I'm sorry to
Yeah, no,
monopolize
you're
the
good.
time.
Go ahead.
Do you have any suggestions or like recommendations for like editing? Not necessarily like again paying for software, but like thoughts on Canva, or is there maybe there's something we are not aware of? Like, oh, this is a good kind of like free resource if you wanted to edit a video or a photo or
Yeah,
something
you
like that.
can edit in Canva. Canva's like super user friendly. I don't it's tricky because I do most of my editing in like professional software, but
Right.
I also know it was funny. One of my friends she was like, "Yeah, I guess iPhone has a new update that you can do a lot of editing on, even if it's just like a profile or not a but like a portrait like of somebody." She's like, "Oh yeah, I took a picture of my son and I could like go in and just take out all of his blemishes. It was amazing." I was like, "Yeah, yeah, iPhone's coming a long way, man. Like, look at this." So I think you can do a whole lot more in your phone than I think we typically think of because in our day-to-day pictures where we're just doing little snapshots and like getting a quick, picture of like our kids or our pet or something we want to send to somebody like, "Oh, look at this cute book I bought. Like, here's a picture." We don't think about editing at all. Um, but if you go into your iPhone when you've taken the picture or you've taken the video and you push like you click on edit, it's going to bring up a whole lot of options that you can start picking and choosing through. And there's filters you can put on stuff. So I would start just with the phone first. And then if you're finding that you need more, then Canva probably is a good next step before you get into like Lightroom or some of the more advanced, ways of editing.
Rebecca, this has been great. When you think about, uh, I find action shots kind of the hardest ones to capture when people are working together and or having a discussion.
Mhm.
Like sometimes, you get people in a discussion and everyone's like has their concentrating face, so it looks like
Yeah,
they're angry
they're
or
really serious. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, or when I used to take photos out on student service trips, I'd have everyone like stop and kind of look at me and do sort of a pose candid to try to
Hmm.
capture it. But when you think about kind of practical tips, if you just have your phone, whether it's an iPhone or an Android, could you share a little bit about I don't know, maybe some best practices there of we have we have like the lens and everything cleaned up, like maybe tips around like framing shots,
Mhm.
or that sort of thing. Anything there that comes to mind for folks who are a bit more just
Sure.
everyday phone users and kind of
Yep.
amateur taking photos?
So the biggest things that I would say is number one, this is what I do at least, is I look for the emotion. So as you're looking at something, like you said, Lindsay, you can tell like, oh, they look really serious. So if I take the picture right now, that's going to come across not the way that I want it to. But then maybe someone cracks a joke and now all of a sudden everyone's laughing. That's the time you boom, take the photo. Um, Angle is important. You don't necessarily want to angle up because then you might be angling up people's nose. Not helpful. So either straight on or angled down a little bit. Um, the other thing I would say is if you get a wide shot, which means you're just getting everything in the environment, when later on you can come in and kind of crop that down. And so what you're really going to want to do is just make sure that you're getting like if your goal is to get connection and people having fun or being happy, then your goal is to really zoom in on that particular part and take away all the other distractions. And in the moment, you may not think about all the other distractions because that does take a while to really start paying attention to that. I don't catch that sometimes. And, after doing it for a couple of years, I look at the picture and I go, oh my God, I didn't even realize that was in the picture. But, so instead of trying to remember all the things in the moment, biggest thing is follow the emotion, make sure that's what you capture, and then if you take a wide enough shot or you're like later on like you can always crop that in on your phone. I don't have an Android, so I know that some people said that they have Android phones, so I don't necessarily know how all of that works. I will talk with someone and try to add those tips and tricks onto the cheat sheet that I'll send out. um, I'm I'm hoping and assuming it's probably pretty similar that you take the picture, then you go back in, click on the picture, and then there's a place to put, where it says like edit, and then you'll see like a little box on the bottom, and you'll click that, and that is what will give you the option to kind of crop in your photo however you want it to look. And then once that's done, it'll sort of recalibrate itself, and then you just push done and it saves that for you. So that's what I would say is follow the emotion, and just kind of be patient because it will come.
Thank you. That's great. And I agree. And what you said earlier about taking lots and lots of photos and you get a handful of good ones,
Mhm.
I think we all probably have that experience, but there's often so many gems in there when you're taking photos.
Yes.
Um,
I will say for context, a lot of times, even in just like a simple family session, which might be like 45 minutes, it's not uncommon to have like 600 photos that I've taken, but I cull it down to like 80.
mhm.
So and sometimes it's because you have like three photos that look identical, but sometimes it's like you took something and you're like, nope, that didn't work out the way that I wanted it to. So don't get frustrated with yourself if you're taking pictures and it's not turning out how you want it. Keep at it. Practice, have fun, try new things, think outside the box. If you get really stuck and you're like, I'm done, look up stock photos. It's a good, easy cheat sheet, you know, that's very affordable. So,
For sure.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today as our presenter and everyone for listening in. We really appreciate you sharing your expertise, Rebecca, and for everyone with your great questions. We hope to see you next month. I'll be sending out information once I remember where I booked the room, but it is in Blacksburg at the Corporate Research Center. We'd love to see you for our end of year lunch. And if you ever have any ideas for presenters or topics, we would love to hear them. So please reach out. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. Thanks so much, Rebecca. We appreciate you.
Thank you.